So sorry about that. I found that if I just unlock my phone and put it on video, the video tends to be a little bit longer. Stuff that I just learning. But yeah. So I got this one pretty much worked all the way around. And I got this side worked all the way around, already trimmed through the tail. I think I'm going to do that now on this side. Another thing that I can tell you right now is if I have a nice stainless steel table. When you get a little bit of moisture on it, they tend to slide very nicely. You're going to want that because if they stick, you're going to damage the scales every time you move it. So a smooth surface, or at least a very wet surface, helps too. And right now I'm just kind of working the edge of that tail, trying to get it exposed so I can get at the rates here without making, I'm also making sure I'm not cutting through anywhere either. So you definitely don't want to do that. I mean, it's a fairly easy fix if you do, but just I try not to. And then, like I said, I'll come in with my shears and I work along that edge and make sure I'm not poking through on the back side, and then just work my way around. And like I said, I'm gonna leave a little bit extra on here because I'll come back through and trim it a little bit more after I get the meat out, because it's just easier to work when you can maneuver the skin a little bit easier. And just work on one ray at a time. Don't try to go all the way across at once, because that's how you tend to make mistakes. And then like I said before, it's pretty tough working on the tail because of all the, I don't know if they're nerves or tendons or what, but they tend to make your life a little bit difficult. So what I do is I have a scissors. These are all, I get stuff from Amazon and eBay and whatever else, anywhere it's cheap. And I just kind of work my way underneath the skin without poking through, trying to get between the meat and the skin to trim off some of these. You can see how tough they are because every time you hear that click, that's one of them, either, like I said, nerves or tendons. And I just kind of work my way around, freeing up that meat from the skin. I'll go through, and once I get this all cleaned out, I'll go through and use my scraper and clean it out better. But this at least frees it up to where I can start to pull it out of here. I know some like I said, some people are going to be like, what the heck is he doing? He just doing it all wrong. This is just the way I do it. If you don't like it, then don't do it my way. That's just the way that I find works for me. And then a lot of times I'll work my way back up to the fin rays, where the fins are. And like I said, once this is all out of here, I'll use my scraping tool with some borax, and I'll clean it up even more. And borax is a good thing too, because it's kind of like a fish preservative as well, or skin preservative, I should say. But it also takes a lot of the gooiness and the fluid out of it too. If you can, when you use it, it's like a absorbent, like oil dry almost. obviously, if there's an easier way to do this, by all means, let me know. But this is, like I said, this is just the way I do it. I find that after you poke through the skin a few times, you realize, oh, maybe I should do that a little differently. So that's just what I did. I do it a little differently. And then I'll start working my way back up. I'm going to cut through these fin rays. And like it, you know, you only want to do one at a time. Work your way up, take your time, don't poke through. And I got my fingers on the other side of it so I can feel right where my snips are. Cutting through it. Now, the head area, okay, so I'm all the way to the end of that fin ray, and I didn't clear myself up enough, so trim myself a little bit back there. And once you get up into the head area, you definitely got to go up into the skull quite a bit. And there's another way that you can damage a fish too, is if you're trying to rush it. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll leave myself quite a bit of meat in there. After everything's out, I'll have easier access to everything, and it's just easier for me to get at it at that point then, rather than try to fight with it and poke through and damage a perfectly good skin. Working my way up. Now you can kind of see this is all meat. I'm going to try to clean as much of that as much, off as possible, but I'll do that after I get the skin out. What I'll do is I'll just kind of work my way back up. And you can see how it kind of peels away after you get them rays cut through there. So, and then you just kind of work your way around on the bottom side. Now your show side, you want to make sure you don't damage that, so that's where you got to be careful. Now I'm going to work on up in this head area. So what I'll do is I'll just take my little skinning knife, very lightly, work my way around until I get all that meat freed up from there. Now, I'm not trying to fold the skin, I'm not trying to wrench on it, pull on it, or anything else. I'm just trying to let the knife do most of the work for me. Sometimes you gotta help it a little bit, but you don't want to pull too hard, because if you start pulling on it, you could either tear it or drop a bunch of scales, and you don't want to do that. A lot of times if you just kind of wiggle the knife here and there, that helps too. Now, another thing that helps that I found is a cheeker tool, they call it. And a lot of times what I'll do is I'll just kind of turn that on its side, and I'll wiggle that around back and forth, and that helps to clean it out as well. I do have a bigger one that you can use for deer. I'll go grab that. So when you go to tuck the deer lips in on the form, you're going to use a tool like this, and this could help as well. And all you're going to do is just kind of wiggle it around. That skin's coming off fairly easy, so just wiggle it around, don't poke through. A lot of times if you take it and you just do this number while pushing, it frees it up too. Sometimes you gotta poke at it, sometimes you gotta wiggle it, sometimes you gotta kind of cut at it, but you gotta go. Show you on the skull here. Now, the skull kind of goes right to here. So what I'm doing is, I don't know if you can see that wiggling. but I'm working my way up to this V right here. I'm going to work all the way around, and you'll have to trim this all the way up into here with your shears. But yeah, I'm just trying to free that all up. And remember, whatever you do on this side, you're going to have to kind of free up on the other side too. But it's a little easier getting through the other side, I think. Now, I'm going to work my way from the top around. So what I'll do is I'll lay the fish up on its belly, and now that I got the tail free, I can work my way down with my knife here. And just very slowly work your way down. No need to rush it. The more time you take, the better product you end up making. So just take your time. Now, if you're trying to make more money on it, yeah, go ahead and rush. If you get this down, go ahead. But I don't recommend it, just because of the fact that repairing these after you skin them is kind of difficult. It's just easier. Now, part that I always have trouble with is in the throat area. You'll kind of see why, because the skin is super thin around the gill area and throat area, and I nick through constantly when I do that. And one thing that I've found helps to prevent a lot of that is using that cheeker tool and just kind of working my way slowly around it, peeling it off of there. But I mean, if you poke through in that area, a lot of times you're gonna have to rebuild it anyways, so not that big of a deal, because they tend to shrink in that area a lot when they're drying. One thing that I try to do to prevent a lot of that shrinkage is I'll fill that with fish fill, or sometimes with clay, self-drying clay. But you want it to, whatever you use, you want it to be fairly easy to work with and mold after, because one thing I found that if you can get the fish fill just right when you're putting it back on the form, there's a lot less work you're going to have to do, and it doesn't shrink as much in spots. Sometimes you can't help it. Sometimes it just dries funky. But as you can see, I'm just kind of working my way through. I'm not trying to wrench on that skin too much, because if you wrench on that skin a lot, you're going to end up losing scales, and you don't want to do that. So just working my way down. Hopefully you guys can see this pretty well. And like I said, you get all that meat off of here. This is all fillet left over. Granted, it'd take you forever, and if you got like 16 of them you want to do, I wouldn't recommend doing it that way. Somebody just tried to come down and say hi, but probably my wife. Getting close to dinner time, so I'm guessing I'm gonna have to leave pretty soon here. But I always try to get this done before I go do anything else. Now when you stand it up, you can work your way down, and a lot of times gravity helps you. You get down to a certain point, and then sometimes you got to flip it back over on this side now. Now you see how the blood's coming out of it. This is probably when I'd probably go and throw it in the tub for a little bit and let it soak so I can get some of that blood out of there, because I don't want that collecting for too long. I'm going to take my shears, I'm going to cut along that fin ray. Same thing, I got my fingers behind it. You can see that. I can feel exactly where the point of my shears are as I'm cutting through those fin rays. Okay, so see this little chunk of meat right here. I'm trying to get that off of there. I don't have to trim as much later. And sometimes if you just take your scissors and you just run it that long side of there, it comes right off. So I cut through this fin, and I've cut through all these fins. I can either continue working from the top down or work from the bottom around. And I think what I'm going to do is, I'm starting to get some blood and slime, so I think I'm going to soak this for a while, kind of help clean that off a little bit. My gloves are kind of tore up anyway, so I think we're going to pause the video for a minute here.